You're listening to Two Brains the podcast. This brain is Marlon.
This brain is Liv.
So for the podcast, we're going to be doing a more loosey-goosey formula.
Indeed, yes.
Just kind of discussions. So we're just going to have a chat.
Have a chat.
About different topics.
Yes.
So today we're going to do about rappers who are influential.
Yeah.
What goes into being an influential rapper?
Who is influential?
What the difference is between being a great rapper and being an influential rapper, if there is a difference.
And vice versa.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty important topic. Especially nowadays when people always talk about doing it for the culture. I think that implies some level of influence.
Right, yeah.
So we should probably start with what actually makes an artist or a rapper specifically. What makes them influential? What do you think makes someone influential?
So me personally, I think originality is probably the key, because I don't think you can be influential without being completely original.
Yeah.
Or at least somewhat original. And I think it's the sort of thing that you can see in hindsight way more than you can at the current moment. So we can see now who's influential, but just simply because of who's now replicating the style and who's now clearly influenced by that rapper. So it's much easier to tell in hindsight.
I would agree with that. But I think the one thing with originality is that the longer the medium of rap goes on, the harder it is to be complete, because you're always going to take influence from the people that you've been listening to.
Yeah.
So the further down you get, the more influences you're taking on. So I think when you get, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to be even harder to be considered influential than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Because 10, 20 years ago, people were doing these things for the first time.
Yeah.
And now basically everything's been done.
I mean,
what we think everything's been done. But
yeah,
I think it is harder for new artists.
I think there's always still room to explore, though.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely times where artists bring out an album and we think, oh, that's different. But I think that's always a good thing.
But so do you not think that you can be influential while still following the tropes or the cliches of rap? Do you think you can do that?
I mean, I think just feel like there has to be one thing. So even if it's just your voice, or even if it's just the lyrics or just the beats that you work with, there has to be one thing, I think, that's completely original.
So you don't need everything happening at the same time?
Yeah. So I kind of feel like the artists that are influential in kind of basically one area.
You think so?
Kinda, yeah.
I think taking that approach is just focusing on their output and their musical output, but not the other side, because rap is a lot about image as well. So there are people who are very, very influential because of a combination of my voice broke. Because of the combination of their talent and their output, but also how they presented themselves in the public.
Sure. I would argue though that that's not as important an influence.
I think it's not as important, but I do think it is very important.
Okay.
I think it's harder to be very influential without having that something about your public persona as well, or lack thereof, that makes you either outgoing or enigmatic or something.
Right.
Because if you're in the public or you're doing press and you're just again following the rules and conventions of everyone who's done it before you, you might not stand out as much, even if your talent is there.
Right. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what do you think is the difference between being a great artist and being an influential artist?
Again, like you said, it's hindsight. We don't know who's influential until the time has passed, and then we look back and we say, oh yeah, that person was really influential because of what's come now.
I do feel like you can get inklings of who's going to be influential, though, just from who's going in a different direction to everyone else. But
see, this is again, that there are some artists who unfortunately they are very cutting edge and they do things that are very out of the ordinary, but they don't get that recognition,
right? And
therefore they're not necessarily that influential, even if
So you have to be great in order to be influential, you think?
I would say no. I don't think you have to be great to be influential.
You have to be good to be influential.
No, more often than not, yes.
Okay.
I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who do have both, who have the talent and the skill, and they also have like that public persona, but they just don't, like they've got like a very, very cult-like fan base, and that like appeal doesn't extend outside of that fan base, which happens to some artists. So I think it's also it's also timing. I think as well. I think timing is an underrated aspect of influence.
For sure. I think definitely like combining genres is something that can be very influential. I think like someone like, to be honest, I don't know who did it first, but whoever started combining like emo with rap. Whoever did that, I don't know if it was like Uzi or People or someone way before. I don't know.
I think it started quite a long time before that. Like it was like someone like Kanye, like when he brought out 808s and Heartbreak, it was that rappy.
Okay, but I don't think Kanye started that.
No, but see, like there's some things that lay the foundations for things to come. So being very, very sad and emotional in like a hip hop context.
I'm not talking about being emotional though. I'm talking about the genre of emo music.
Yeah, but emo is emotional.
No, but that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is the blending of the genres.
Yeah,
the genre of emo music is very specific. It's not just emotional. It's a very specific sound. I'm talking about the sound.
So you don't think it might have stemmed from like, you know how like in the early mid 2000s there was like the whole like new metal craze.
Like what?
Like Linkin Park and places like, because there's a lot of rappers who come out now who are very influenced by that sound.
Sure.
Where they were taking a lot of influences from like pop
Rage
punk
Against
and
the
stuff.
Machine and stuff.
Yeah. So it's that's influence from an entirely different genre that's seeped into hip hop.
I get what you mean. That's like that sort of stuff laying the foundations. But I think it took someone literally gonna go, I like emo music, I like rap music, I'm gonna combine them together. That's a specific thing, which probably stemmed from that. But them actually going out and doing that, I think maybe.
See, I would disagree in saying it's like one person I think that sound was something that was a gradual thing. I don't think it just like appeared out of nowhere. I think it was like creeping more and more and more until you heard like a complete blend of the two. That's what I would say.
Oh, but I see, for that sort of claim, I'd want to see the receipts and I'd want to see the timeline of what your specific examples.
I mean, you know, you can work backwards. So if you like talk about artists like Uzi or Juice WRLD or Lil Peep, people like that, like even, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there were people like Lil B, who again was doing that, but maybe not to the extent that we see now. Right, but you could hear like that's not something that we're used to.
Right.
It's combining this very un-hip hop sound in a hip hop context.
Yeah.
So I think someone like Lil B in that specific context may have like helped progress that sound in hip hop.
Okay, I definitely see what you're saying. But I was just using that as an example.
Oh, just as an
like
example,
blending genres is a way of.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think blending like it can work both ways. Like it could be violently terrible. Like we've heard it. I'm not going to name names, but like people have attempted to blend genres that just don't fucking work.
Yeah,
just don't work
for sure.
So I think it like more often than not, it has to be like a gradual thing. Like because if it's not, it's like a shock to the system for fans. That like, this is not expecting it at all.
But like, didn't Lil Nas X do that with country and rap?
Yeah, but see,
he definitely brought it to the forefront.
See, he brought it to the forefront.
But then, have you seen anyone else do that since?
I've seen people do it before.
Yes, but he definitely brought it out.
He brought it out there, but there were people like, what's his name, Lil Tracy and Young Thug. Young Thug was doing it even to a greater extent than Lil Nas X.
Oh, right, okay.
But then Lil Nas X like made it fully pop and fully accessible.
Commercial, yeah. I mean, we haven't seen the repercussions of that really.
No, because it's
like
a very new thing.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, now. It's a very new thing, so we'll have to wait until 2030 to see how influential that sound was. So who do you think are like, in your head, because obviously we have very different perspectives on the genre of rap, like from your understanding, who would you consider to be someone who's like extremely influential, like historically?
See, like, I can't speak because I'm a reasonably recent hip hop fan, and I've started delving back into kind of more the classic stuff, but I haven't fully yet. Like, obviously, it's so vast, it's going to take me forever. So, like, I can speak on who I think of kind of recent years who I think has been really influential, but I can't really speak about, you know, guys from the 90s and from the early noughties and stuff like that.
But if you had, like, if you've heard these names floating about that people consider to be, oh, he influenced so-and-so, so-and-so. So
I genuinely think that one of the most influential kind of contemporary rappers is Lil Wayne.
Oh, no, yeah. 100%.
I think he's, like, one of the top who's been influential. Because even though he may not be the most successful himself...
I mean, he's one of the most successful.
I mean, yeah, but he's not the most. But I just feel like his sound has translated down so many avenues, which have then...
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Because there are, like, people like... Not just because of the namesake, but people like Lil Uzi who've adapted some of his mannerisms and some of his, like...
Even the emo stuff, probably a lot of it comes from Wayne.
Yeah, and he's someone who experimented with smashing genres together.
Yeah.
And some of it didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it failed violently.
But he was just giving it a go.
He was giving it a go, which is, you know... But then, Lil Wayne can influence someone like Uzi, but also someone like Kendrick, who you would see as very, very different artists.
Very different, yeah, exactly.
But they, like, you can hear Wayne in both of them.
Yeah.
So
just in different ways.
That might be another marker of someone who's truly influential, is that they can influence wildly different sounds.
Yes, exactly. Because I think probably the most influential rapper right now is Young Thug. Yeah. But then when I think about it, I'm like, well, Thug probably is influenced by Wayne.
That most definitely,
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think a lot of it stems from him. And plus, he's been doing it for so long now.
20 years, more than 20 years.
Exactly. So we've already seen the repercussions already.
I would say, I mean, so, like, as someone who has been listening to hip-hop basically all my life, like, again, I know there's a bit of bias that comes into this, but I do think Kanye is one of the most influential, not just rappers, but, like, musicians of the last 20 years. Yeah. And, again, he, like Wayne... He's influenced people in so many different lanes. Right. Because so you had, like, the spawning of like Drake and Kid Cudi, who were being very, very melancholic in their music. Yeah. And you can hear Kanye in them, but then you have someone like Tyler, who's using, like, the unconventional samples and the eccentricity of Kanye. Right. So like, Drake and Tyler are very, very different artists. Yeah. But they both stem from that class.
Yeah. No, I would agree that I do think Kanye's influential, but I don't see him as being influential as someone like Wayne. But I think I'm looking at a different aspect. I'm looking at the influence of sound rather than of subject.
Maybe, because, I mean, in terms of subject matter, Kanye kind of, like, I don't say he started it, but he popularized, like, it's okay not to have been a drug dealer. Like, it's okay to have just been, like, a relatively normal kid.
Maybe opened up for more people.
He basically opened up the Pandora's box of what is considered alternative hip hop. So people who aren't rapping about the traditional, like, gangster lifestyle or pushing drugs, because that's just not him. Right. So someone like Drake who can come along and rap about being in Degrassi is considered acceptable.
And being sad.
Yeah. Or rapping about being satirical. Like, again, these things existed before Kanye, but I think he made it that it was very, very commercially viable.
And do you think Kanye was influential in his entrepreneurship?
See, in terms of entrepreneurship, I think...
Or do you think that was like Dre? It's probably...
I think it would be, in terms of, like, being like a businessman, it would be the Dr. Dre's, the P. Diddy's, Jay-Z, the Master P's, people like that. Right. Those like who are basically now primarily businessmen, and then their hip hop careers kind of second.
I think Kanye definitely was influential in the, like, marrying music and fashion. Yeah. So someone like Young Thug comes up with a line, and then obviously Tyler's got golf. And, you know, all of that.
I think if we're talking about like traditional hip hop and what's considered traditional hip hop, then of course you can't look past, like, Tupac and Biggie. And I think what's, like, astounding about them is that they were so young when they passed away. They were in
Yeah.
their mid-20s,
Right.
and people still to this day, pack a biggie.
I maybe this is controversial to say. I don't know, but I feel like part of their influentiality came from their deaths. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, like it's definitely a part of it because obviously at the time there was the whole hype around like the East Coast West Coast like rivalry, and that kind of signaled the end of a chapter in hip hop,
right?
The end of this supposedly violent rivalry,
right?
So I think that does play into their kind of legend status,
right?
But it's that. Again, like I said, it's timing. It's that like cultural moment mixed with the talent that makes them influential.
Right.
Because I think if they had the exact same talent and they were around 10 years later, people would still love them, but I don't think they would be revered as these are the pinnacle of the art form.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. So obviously, like in our heads, the greatest is Kendrick.
Yes.
But like, I feel like he's more subtly influential.
In what way?
There's like Wayne is overtly influential, whereas I feel like Kendrick is more subtly.
In what way do you think he's subtly influential?
Because I think he's influential in that I feel like he has influenced other artists to be better.
Yeah.
I think he inspires other artists to do better and to be more kind of what's the word, like think more about what they're putting out and do more conscientious stuff. But in terms of like the sound and stuff, I wouldn't say that is the most influential.
I would agree with that because like if we look at like To Pimp a Butterfly, when it came out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, this shit is amazing! This is amazing! This is like one of the best rap albums ever made."
Yeah.
But we're 5 years after that now, and there hasn't the sound of hip hop hasn't been saturated with people doing freaking spoken word poetry and free jazz and funk and all that stuff. There's a lot of it, but that's not what dominant sound is.
Right.
Like by a long shot.
Yeah.
So in that respect, again, you can be great without being the most influential.
Right.
And I think even someone like Kendrick would recognize that himself. And that's why that sound was that era. Now he's on to some new shit. Because Kendrick himself, the reason he's so commercially successful as well as amazing is that he recognizes what the zeitgeist is. And at the moment, it's that loud, booming, like trap sound.
Right.
And see, when Damn came out, it was much more of that. Not because he's chasing trends, but because he's amalgamating these different styles.
Right.
And that's someone who I think is forward thinking. Not necessarily that they're completely original, because the sounds on Damn aren't completely original.
Right.
But it's progressing it into something else.
Right.
Which I think contributes to how influential you are.
For sure. So, and someone else who I feel like has been very influential for now is Migos.
Yeah.
So that whole the
triplet flow.
The triplet flow. Did they start that, or was that before? I mean,
this is the thing. That's something that's like done like a full 360.
Right.
Because back in like the mid to late 90s, you heard a few people you heard like Bone Thugs and Harmony doing that very, very fast triplet staccato flow.
Yeah.
And then it kind of faded away, but people were doing it, but it wasn't the most popular thing by any means. Maybe until the Migos and the Futures came along.
Right, yeah. I do feel the kind of like that, with their kind of influence was quite short-lived.
Who, Migos?
Yeah, because I feel like then everyone started doing that thing.
It became saturated.
But then I kind of feel like they've left that now, you know what I mean? Even Migos seem to have left that.
I mean, this is the thing with Migos.
Yeah.
I think Offset and Takeoff have left that and they've moved on. And I think Quavo is stuck. Genuine. I think he's stuck in that sound. As much as I enjoy a lot of Quavo's music, I don't think he's as diverse as the other two.
Right.
I think he's stuck in 2016.
Okay, there's no need to be mean.
No, I'm not
Quavo.
being mean. No, I enjoy Quavo's music. When I hear a Quavo feature, I'm like, oh shit, it's nice to hear Quavo.
Yeah.
But, some people get stuck in their sounds.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be interested to see what they do on Culture 3 anyway. has to be good, doesn't it?
It would definitely be better than Culture 2.
Yeah. So how, like, I'm interested to know how influential you feel Travis is, because I don't know how influential he is.
So I think Travis Scott is one of those people who they're open in how influenced they are by other people. So his sound is so influenced by Kid Cudi, Kanye, T-Pain, the auto-tune shit. Yeah. So because his sound is basically like those artists smashed together.
I do feel like he's taken it down a route though where it's much more melodic. It's much more kind of that, obviously working with Mike Dean and everything, they've kind of created this sound.
I think what Travis has done different to other people or his peers who do that similar kind of sound is that he's taken it more down like a more psychedelic route.
Oh yeah.
So it's very what you might consider like progressive.
Right.
It's like his music is very, very like fluid and doesn't really stay in the same place.
I do feel like he might be one where we can pinpoint him and say he's going to be influential right now, but I don't think we're really seeing that at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like if we come back in 10 years and have a look at how influential he was.
Yeah. I think we'll look back on like how, because I think Travis at the moment is like insanely big. Like from the last 2 to 3 years, I think if he keeps his consistency up, he can be like one of the biggest rappers in the world for like 10 years. I think we're going to look back on Travis and see him as kind of like an anomaly.
Do you think?
I do think, because he's like, again, he's making this like auto-tune trap crooning thing that's very popular, but he's doing it in a very, very unconventional way in comparison to the other people who are doing it. So I think people will look back and be like, do you know what? It's actually quite surprising that Travis was as successful as he was making the music he was. That's what I think. Not necessarily that he won't be influential, but I think people will look back and be like, he was like, at the time, he was doing something quite different.
But I feel like in those cases where people were doing things that were different, they turned out to be very influential. Like, can you think of anyone back in the, I don't know, late 90s, early noughties who was doing something, who you would look back on and say, they were doing something really different, but you haven't seen any influence after?
Maybe not that far back, but I do think there are artists who have been doing things differently that aren't particularly influential. Maybe not to a wide extent. Like you can be influential in like specific niches. So someone like MF Doom is very influential, obviously influenced by like Wu-Tang and stuff. But he is extremely influential, but in a very, very specific kind of hip hop. Like it's very, very left field. It's murky. Like people like are very, very influenced by him. But I wouldn't go out and say MF Doom is one of the most influential rappers of all time. Right. Even though he is very influential. Yeah. It's because it's like quite contained in like a cult-like manner. Right, yeah. That's what you mean.
I think like things like groups as well, like I think Odd Future was pretty influential. I think without Odd Future we wouldn't have like Brockhampton.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not.
The whole idea of like banding together some misfits to just like do some kooky shit.
But again, so like, I'm glad you brought up Odd Future again, because what a lot of people do is they project influence, or like you taking influences from someone else because of like a circle level commonality. So I remember when Odd Future first like became big, like they became big when I was like 14, 15, so I was like the perfect target audience. Right, yeah. And then everyone was like, oh, it's just like Wu-Tang. There's like hella people and they're rapping. It's like Wu-Tang. And even back then, like I didn't know that much about Wu-Tang, but like I knew some stuff, and I was like, they're like nothing like Wu-Tang. Like they're very different. They operate very, very different spaces. Yeah. So I think people can look at someone who's doing one thing and be like, oh, you must be influenced by that because there's this one common trait. Right. And like people in the future have come out themselves and be like, look, we're not like Wu-Tang. We're not like Wu-Tang. That's you projecting. Right. What you fuck with.
Yeah, because Wu-Tang's it was like a gang thing, wasn't it? Whereas Odd Future's not like that at all.
I mean, the only common thing between them is that there was a lot of people making music together. It's the only common subject matter, aesthetically.
And then they also did their solo shit as well as...
Yeah, that's the only two commonalities. Right. But apart from that, there's no common... So I think that's the danger with when we say someone is influenced by someone, because sometimes it can be just like a surface level thing.
Very, In terms of groups, I mean, obviously like Outkast, very influential.
Extremely. The greatest. Again, without
the greatest.
The greatest, yeah. Without Andre, is there like, do you think Young Thug would have wore a dress on his album cover without Andre 3000 existing? I don't think so. Because I remember on the first song, the second song on Aquemini, Return of the G, he's like, it's like a response to all the people who were like questioning why he was going so left field. He stopped rapping about the gangster shit. He was talking about like philosophy and time travel and shit.
Yeah.
And in the song, he addresses those criticisms. And he's like, people are saying, is he on coke? Is he gay? Like, what's going on? We don't understand it. And the same thing happened with Young Thug. People are like, is Young Thug gay? I'm like, wearing a dress and your sexuality has nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
So I don't think
he really like did well with that though, because he didn't give a shit when people were calling him gay. Like
exactly,
like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Again, that's one thing where they've been like their sounds are very very different, but the public persona.
Right, I get what you mean. Yeah.
They're both very eccentric and they do pretty much whatever the hell they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do love Young Thug a lot.
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah. But I do think he's very influential in a lot of different ways, which I think sets him apart a little bit from others. But like, you listen to the new rappers coming up now, and I get a lot of trouble in this channel for saying that everyone sounds like Young Thug, but I genuinely do hear the influence everywhere.
Yeah, he's very influential. Yeah. But obviously, there's a difference. Some artists are just derivative, and some artists like take influence and put their own spin on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Won't name names, but it happens with pretty much anything.
Yeah. So how influential do you think artists outside of hip hop were? Like people like Stevie Wonder and like, I don't know, like Ray Charles, or, you know, you take people from outside of hip hop back in the day.
Yeah.
I think they were pretty influential.
No, they're infinitely influential because the whole, like the inception of hip hop is taking these sounds from other things and making it into something new.
Right, sure.
So like the first idea of sampling was like taking these drum breaks from like funk and soul.
Yeah.
And then rapping over that. And then obviously the idea of sampling, it's from every genre under the sun.
Right.
So the very nature of hip hop is being influenced by other sounds and making something new.
Right, yeah. So who do you think has been very influential but has been rubbish? When I say rubbish, is that a British thing? They're not very
shit.
Good. Yeah.
Just not to my taste, or I mean,
or no, people you think are not good, but they've been influential.
Just in the realm of hip hop. That's a very interesting question. Not off the top of my head. Because I don't know, because being influential means a lot of people look up to those people as having some sort of quality.
I have one, but I know it's controversial.
Just say it, and I'll argue, and I'll say why you're wrong.
You'll argue.
Yeah, I'll argue.
I'm gonna say Drake.
That's just.
See,
the thing with again, Drake is someone who's very influenced by other people, but I think he's influential in his sound because like he's by no means the first person to do the singy, rappy, wavy shit like Max B. Like that's not, he didn't start that.
Yeah. But
he made it insanely popular. There's a reason why he's the biggest rapper in the world for the past 10 years. Like it's not even close.
Yeah.
But I think he's influential in, like, if you look at, like, he's got a bar where he talks about like, I lead the league in scoring, but look at my assists. And all the people that like he's helped their career or in some way like shone a light on them, they've gone on to be massively successful.
Right. Yeah.
So like in the artists I think of that I would not have heard of if it wasn't for Drake, I think makes him influential. So I never would have heard of The Weeknd if it wasn't for Drake.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I feel like The Weeknd would have come in.
No, he would have, but I'm saying like everyone needs that little bump to get where you're going quicker. I never would have heard of The Weeknd. I never would have heard of Kendrick.
Really?
When I was 14 and I downloaded Take Care and Kendrick was on Buried Alive.
That's how you discovered
Yeah,
Kendrick.
so that was what,
is it?
2011. So it was the year Section 80 dropped, but the first time I heard Kendrick's voice was on Buried Alive. And I was like, who is this guy? Because he's going ham.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's Kendrick Lamar. It's Kendrick Lamar. Never would have heard of bloody 21 Savage, Lil Baby, all of these people.
Okay.
Even some of them don't work. Blockboy JB's, his relevance is gone. But look at Lil Baby. He's got like one of the biggest selling albums of the year.
Yeah, see, Lil Baby, I don't really understand the hype at all.
I mean, I fuck with some of his stuff.
I don't fuck with any of it.
No,
really.
he's got some fire. Like, I wasn't a fan of the album, but
yeah.
But yeah, like, again, so many people that I never would have heard of. French Montana or DJ Khaled, maybe even Rick Ross. I wouldn't have heard of.
Wow, really?
Yeah. When I was listening to it, I was like 14.
That's part of his thing, though, isn't it? So putting spotlight on artists, like he did that whole mixtape.
Yeah.
To spotlight British, like grime artists and stuff.
Yeah, and obviously because we're English.
Yeah.
Like obviously we know Sampha, we know Giggs, we know Skepta.
Right.
But like someone like, I don't know, like Georgia Smith, never heard of her ever, and now look, she's doing massive things because of that little. No, I'm not saying that it's her success is just down to that, because obviously you have to be talented.
Give her a boost,
but like getting that boost from someone like Drake is like something that can't be understated. So he's someone that taps. He's like a master, like genius in knowing what is going to trend.
Sure.
That makes someone influential.
I'm not sure though that has much longevity.
I mean, it does, because look how long he's been doing it, and he's still the biggest artist in the world. Like
when you think of the songs that have done really well.
Yeah.
Like they've been everywhere for like a month and then they're nowhere.
I would violently disagree with that. I still walk into like.
So do you hear people going, Kiki? Do you know?
I mean, sometimes, but like obviously,
no, it's nowhere.
But there's
anymore.
like I still go into like shops or like I don't know, like H&M or something, and I hear "Hold On, We're Going Home." I hear that.
Who do you think is the most influential artist of all time in hip hop?
In hip hop, the most influential. I would say Kanye West.
You would say Kanye.
I would say Kanye West. I think his influence is still felt today.
Because he's still making music.
I know, but I think his influence, like what he was when he first broke out, this like person who didn't fit any of the conventions of hip hop. If you look at how many different kind of characters we have in hip hop now, who are all very, very majorly successful, I don't think you'd have that diversity without someone like Kanye breaking that mold.
But do you think it was him that was? Because you're saying basically that he introduced the idea that you can be an artist without having the stereotypical background, like of being in gangs or whatever it is. But I don't feel like he was the only one person to do that.
No, that's what I say. He wasn't the first and only. He wasn't the first or the only by any means, but I'm saying he was timing. He was the most successful at doing that. Because he combined doing that. So that you can do these like groundbreaking things in quotation marks, but your music has to be amazing as well to combine the two to make it influential.
Right.
So there might have been people doing the same thing where they're not rapping about the traditional things, but the music just wasn't as good. Whereas like Kanye West, he hit the ground running with his music, and then people look to how he got there and they're like, oh shit, like if he can do that, I can do that.
Okay. I think when I think of it, I think we have different approaches to it, because when I think of influential artists, I think of just like the sound of it.
Yeah, but I think it's a whole package. It's a whole package. Because I
just think we have different approaches to it.
There's so many amazing artists who are just not influential. And it's because they haven't had that combo of timing and doing something that's like wildly out of the norm.
Okay.
Or they haven't hit on, like, they haven't put their finger on that one thing that will make them influential. Not for a lack of talent or anything. So who do you think now, who's like come out in the last like couple of years, who do you think will be looked at as being like the next batch of influential like artists? Because someone newer like Tyler, because he's been around for so long, you already see that influence. You already see like people like Jaden and Kevin Abstract, people like that. But like, who do you think is like just like starting out now?
Starting out now.
Because obviously it's so hard to predict.
It's so hard to
predict. We'll look back on this in 10 years and we'll be like, yeah, I was right.
that would probably say we were
No.
wildly wrong. I mean, like I said, I think Travis definitely will. We just haven't really seen the full repercussions of it yet. Now I'm trying to think who's like doing some crazy shit, because there's probably some stuff where we think like, whoa, that's really weird, but like that's probably the stuff.
See, what I think, personally, and also again at the moment he doesn't particularly have a lot of commercial success, but I think someone like JPEG Mafia will be very influential. I think because we live in like the streaming age now, and how we consume music is very, very like eclectic, and we listen to so many different things, and it's all like the press of a button.
Right.
I think his music reflects that, because it sounds like everything happening at once.
Right, sure.
And I think that approach, that like DIY approach, is going to catch on a lot.
Okay.
Maybe because of him, and because he's willing to work with so many different people.
Okay.
I think think JPEG Mafia might be very influential.
That's a good shout. Maybe 645 AR.
645 AR is he's living in 2040.
Maybe like Playboy Carti.
No, but Playboy Carti, he's so influenced by like other people. Then it's
who else is doing that baby voice?
Uzi.
Is he?
Yeah. But that bit, I mean, 645 AR he's gone further. Have you heard the Zach Fox Genius thing? He made a perfect comparison. He said, if Playboy Carti is the baby voice, 645 AR is the moment of conception voice. I think that's perfect.
Hilarious. I do feel like I am going to keep my eye on Playboy Carti though, because I do feel like there could be something there, because it's different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where it's different. It sounds very contemporary and very, very like traditional, but there's just something that's a bit like, it's just that one. He's not wildly different. He's just a bit different.
I just think he's quite. How did he come up with that baby voice?
Fuck knows.
How did he think like, I'm going to start rapping like this? I do think there's an element of bravery about it.
Definitely.
Like, you have to just be brave and just like
Yeah.
Do some weird shit because that's the stuff that's gonna.
Yeah, people will like someone like Danny Brown. Like when he first did that check, like that kind of voice, people were probably like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, for sure.
Bringing it back to JPEG Mafia, Danny Brown was telling a story how one time he was opening for Childish Gambino,
right?
And he was doing his set, and everyone was fucking hating it, except for this one guy, and it was JPEG Mafia, and JPEG Mafia was like, "That shit was fire."
Yeah.
So again, it might not be like you're appreciated straight away. People might hate your shit.
Yeah, definitely.
And then with hindsight, people are like, that guy was doing something.
Yeah, because you have to be brave enough
to be shit on.
Yeah, to have people hate on you before they realise that it's good.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would be too scared, like they want people to like them from the off, so therefore they won't venture out into it.
I mean, there's sometimes you're just restricted by your circumstance. So again, when I speaking about Kendrick, like if you listen to like Section 80 is more like To Pimp a Butterfly than Good Kid, Mad City is, like, just aesthetically, because there's a lot of jazz, there's a lot of strange spoken word kind of shit on Section 80.
Right.
But because when it came to Good Kid, Mad City, this is like big major label debut, it had to be a bit more commercial.
Right.
And it's still amazing, but it had to be, and then he had the freedom to go out and do To Pimp a Butterfly.
Right.
So sometimes it's not necessarily that you're scared, but you're just constricted by your circumstance.
Like Frank was when he did Endless, and then
I mean, even Endless was
Blonde.
I think Endless is just as out there as Blonde.
Yeah, it's just not as structured, I don't think.
I mean, no, I mean, I think they've just got very different structures.
Yeah.
Like that fucking staircase.
And someone else who I think is Pop Smoke. But obviously, there's not going to be lots of... It's a difficult one because we literally have such a short, small amount of music.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's going to... We're like starting to see people be influenced by it now. Do you disagree with me?
I don't know, because I think how, like, the whole, like, he had like a very, very specific take on drill, but like drill has been such a massive thing for a number of years now. I think the sounds that we're going to come to hear will have been there with or without Pop Smoke, as well as Pop Smoke was doing his own thing in that sound. Yeah. I think it was already so big. Maybe I think it's bigger than it is because we're in England.
It's bigger than it is.
In England, it's so massive.
But like only here, we're tiny. Like
No,
we're this tiny little island. Like,
but this is the thing, like the sound, like the English take on drill, was so influential that it led to Pop Smoke working with all these English guys and making his own sound out of that English sound.
I get that, but I don't think there's like people in rural Africa listening to drill and whatever. Whereas I think in like 5 years' time, because of someone like Pop Smoke and his people around him doing it, I think they will. And they're kind of like making it a bit more viable on a global scale.
I don't know, because then like one other aspect of influence is like how far back do you go? So if you say Pop Smoke, but then you go to the producers he was working with, and then like back to Chicago drill, you can go back to Chief Keef if you want to. Like, at what point does it start? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is hard to like decipher.
Right.
I think on the flip side, like there are artists like who are just starting out now who I think are amazing, and who I think who won't be influential because sometimes they're a bit too out there that influence can't like fester. So
too out there,
not too out there, but like in the context of the field they're operating in. So someone like Slow Tie, who I love his music, but he's operating in like when people think of an English rapper, it's usually you must be a drill rapper or you're grime.
Yeah,
and that's what they classify you as. And he's neither of those things. So I think in England, he's not as big as like the Heady Ones or the Daves or the Stormzy's.
But I think that's why he's had so much success in America.
But see, this, like I think that success in America is perceived by us because the people he works with are people that we happen to love as well. So in like the way we see him, we like, oh, he's very successful because he's working with Vince Staples and Denzel Curry.
Right,
but I don't think he's that commercially known in America at all. So I think his influence may be limited by the fact that like he's too different from the English guys to be that influential in England, because I still haven't heard any English rappers that sound like Slow Tie. Whereas in America, they're like, it's hard enough for an English rapper to break America, let alone if you're someone that sounds like Slow Tie.
But do you think like someone like that you're going to see his influence in like 10 years' time?
Again,
like there's
maybe.
There's going to be people growing up in Northampton who hear Slow Tie and think, that shit's hard. Like, I could do that stuff. Like, blah.
I agree with
and
that.
Then they, you know,
but
I feel like there's a bit more kind of.
I think if that influence is going to be there, it'll be a niche. It'll be like someone like MF Doom, where the influence is like very contained in one kind of sound, and it wouldn't like. I don't think it would be something that's very, very commercially viable. I think it would be someone that like really, really fucks with that shit, or they just don't know who it is.
Right.
You won't get like a casual Slow Tie listener. Like you don't get casual MF Doom listeners. Either they really fuck with the shit, or they don't know who they are.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I think. Really, because we have the time and the hindsight, the people like I think most people will consider people from like the DMX and NWA and like people from way back. Yeah, they will be considered the most influential for a while.
Yes, because we have that hindsight, and they were there at basically the conception of what is considered like contemporary hip hop.
Exactly. I mean, when you think about it, because hip hop's quite a young genre, really, at least in its form that it's in now. Yeah. So the people who were there at the beginning, they're going to be considered the most influential because they freaking started the genre.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's interesting about hip hop is that like, as opposed to other genres like soul or jazz or anything. We can literally go out and speak to people who were there basically when the genre blew up, when it started. People who were born in the 60s and 70s grew up listening to bloody Sugar Hill Gang and then NWA and Rakim and all those people. So they have a very, very unique perspective on it because we can't go back and speak to the people who were first listening to jazz. You don't really get people who grew up on Charlie Parker unless they're like very, very, very old.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like those artists will be considered the most influential for a while. But for me, I think Lil Wayne is the most influential right now.
But again, it depends on your age and perspective. So contextually, we can look at Tupac and Biggie and Andre 3000 and Eminem. we can look at those people and be like, okay, yeah, they're considered the greats for these reasons. They are very influential. But then hip hop's at a point where now you have people who are famous for being rappers who were born after those people. So like, remember when Roddy Ricch came out and said, like, I grew up in '98. I was not listening to Biggie or Tupac.
Right. Yeah.
Why would my sound be influenced by those people?
Right, yeah.
And that makes, I grew up listening to Future and Young Thug and Drake.
Right. Yeah.
So people coming up now, you can't look down on them because they weren't born. It's like,
yeah, exactly. And it's like so young nowadays. Like people like born in 2000.
Yeah, exactly. So
rappers.
it makes complete sense that they're influenced by people who were big in the last 5 to 10 years.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's like it's like if you're a singer and you were born in, the 80s and you grew up listening to Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. You didn't grow up listening to Ella Fitzgerald.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Same thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. We want to continue this discussion with you guys. So in the comments below, who do you think are the most influential rappers? What do you think influence is?
Who's going to be the most influential?
Yeah, because we're going to be placing our bets. We have
yes.
to,
This is good. This podcast is going to still be there. So we can look back.
So we can look back and see who was right and they get a grand
Exactly.
prize. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for listening, guys.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and dong the bell.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.